Mr. Cormack, we're ready when you are.
Very good, thank you. We have no one that signed in for any public comment, so we're going to move forward. Our first presentation is from Site Logic. Ladies, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, we appreciate it.
And we're on a tight schedule, so we want to move this meeting along quickly.
Yes, we'll talk quickly. I'm just waiting for the presentation to come up. I think we're okay. What we'd like to do is just highlight our agenda for this evening. We'll start talking about kind of the 2022 projects. So these are the summer projects that are currently in place. What I'd like you to focus on, if you're looking for more detail, is the board packet that we just provided to you. This will give you a very detailed account of kind of where these projects are, the progress that we're making, and a little bit more of the schedule highlights. And then we'll transition and start talking about our 2023 projects and how we're progressing through those. These are all projects that we've been acquainted with over the past few months, and we'll just revisit them. Finally, we'll provide you with the financial update and analysis as promised, and then we'll continue on with our committee and board action summary. Very high level today. All we're going to talk about is kind of the masonry restoration and the Academy for Student Wellness. This is a little bit of a before and after. Before is on the left, after is on the right. This is just to highlight some of our progress throughout the district in some of the projects that we've been putting in place. Again, there's more information within the file, more photographs for you to reference, but for those of you familiar with kind of the masonry restoration projects that we talked about last year, this is what we'd like to show you as our progress. This is also similar to a lot of the facility maintenance projects that are slated for next summer. So masonry repair, restoration, you can kind of see what we're talking about whenever we reference those projects. At the high school, you can see the Academy for Student Wellness happening just a few rooms over from us. On the left, you can kind of see the before picture. Minor renovation changes here, but not insignificant in kind of the scale that we're taking on and what we're putting in place for you. So these are updated pictures. We have just finishes to remain to install here with some lighting on the bottom right, ready for the start of school this fall. Andy, you can talk about the salt storage facility. We've moved this up from 2023 to 2022 discussions because we're looking to start putting it in place the end of this year.
Correct. As part of moving it up to 2022 is because of some of the successes that the project had sustained over the summer. We're successful in obtaining, as a team, approval from East Rock Hill Township, a waiver of land development. And that's kind of, or not kind of, directly attributable to condensing the size of the impact to under or at less than or at 1,000 square feet of additional impervious. The location C is the big winner. We were, if you might recall, all the way across the street at one point at location A, and we have B and C and D over here next to the district support center. One of the topics that we'll be addressing tonight as a team is the procurement approach. We're proposing a two-phased procurement approach, and has been as advised by the district solicitor. The first is, if you can see by the dotted line, is stormwater. It's below the ground, reinforced concrete pipe. We need to reverse the flow of that, which means modifying a lot of time in the ground. If we procured that with the stormwater management prime contractor, the district already has engaged in under contract behind the district support center for the parking lot, the bus depot parking lot. It'll save some time in allowing them to prepare as a change order to the existing contract, basically the grade for pad ready. Concurrent with that, we do a public bid event for the actual structure itself. In theory, we complete with the district's prime contractor, completes the underground stuff just in time as the prime contractor gets under contract. They are able to secure some of the materials, and that that little lead time between contract award and go, and they go forth. This plan that we have outlined on the bottom right is contingent upon some flexibility that we're requesting from, or advising, I should say, the committee in considering a special meeting of the facility committee. In following with the practice of the committee reviewing all matters before they go to the school board, we're recommending scheduling a special meeting the day of the board meeting, or thereabouts, in order to consider the change orders for which we'll go and solicit from that prime contractor, Nice Construction and BSI Electric, and have those ready to present to the committee that day, and then you in theory were to make those awards of change orders that night at the board meeting. This will save roughly 45 days in the alternative and allow the project to become operational beginning of December. The alternative would be not becoming operational until January, thereby likelihood of enacting some sort of temporary measure. Right now, this avoids the temporary measure if the committee so should choose to go through the special meeting component. So it's 45 days. We're showing with the goal of getting operational for December. Any questions? Next slide. On the garage side, we're still trekking through zoning and land development approval through East Rock Hill Township. The next update right now is that it's on the Planning Commission's agenda for Thursday. The comments that the township's engineers provided were consistent with past, nothing of great impact to the project, except for the one comment with regards to, was the second bulleted, the zoning interpretations. That there right now is the largest risk to the project, to the district, for which the district solicitor is taking point on at the present time. Other items from the summer involve design related. Nothing of great significance that affected the budget. The budget shown at the bottom are updated for tonight. You may recall about 3-4 months ago, when we last updated and touched the budget estimates, we said, hey, we're gonna keep refreshing these every 3 months because of the market volatility, inflation, etc. And so these are current with today's numbers, and they also include the site work and the paving. One of the items we're gonna touch base on is a purchasing strategy of taking the asphalt and the concrete surrounding the garage and bidding that concurrently with your 2023 site work package and leveraging economies of scale across those two projects into one contract via the public bid route. Any questions? Go ahead.
Where it says they lessened the design requirement, does that mean they just lowered the number of sprinklers that you're required to have, or they made you change the design to make it lower?
It was the building code and outright, if they didn't lessen it, we would have had above ground storage tanks. I think it's about 1,000 feet per second. In any event, they lowered it down to 500, which we could do with the fire pump and the pressure that's in the street. So street pressure plus fire pump allows a certain flow of coverage. That's what they lessened to. The more extreme would have required a facility to keep on hand water to pump out more water in the event of a fire. Because this building is unoccupied, that's the justification for it.
That's what I'm going.
It's unoccupied component. If this building was occupied, the likelihood of having that approved would not have been successful.
Okay.
What warranted the difference between the handout that you guys gave us, which is dated today, had an estimate between 1.7 and 1.9, and now we're up to 2.5 and 2.7.
So what you're seeing on the screen right now is inclusive of all of this site work and.
What was this inclusive of?
That is the building only.
Just the building.
So what you're looking forward ahead of, and we have a slide that replicates what you're seeing there. That is how we will be bidding the projects out. So that will be building only whenever we bid that out, and that's why you're seeing the lower.
So those numbers are still valid just for the building only?
Yes, yes.
The slides are consistent with what we've been seeing for the last couple of months. Packets the first time, and what we'll do is we'll continue that breakout format in subsequent updates in the next couple of months. These 5 items, for the sake of time, are the same 5 items that the committee reviewed and prioritized in June. There haven't been any changes to these 5 items. We included these as a landing for the next conversation on maybe there's some additional items that we would like to, the district may want to consider to add to these projects. Anything particularly we want to highlight in here for the sake of time, since there's no changes?
Yeah, I would say the only thing now, what we're starting to show you is how we're grouping your projects together and utilizing our bid strategy. Andy was talking about the economy of scale. This is how we're starting to achieve that. Essentially by putting together attractive bid packages instead of many small little packages. We're now able to kind of group them together. It becomes a much more attractive to bidders, which means more competitive bid participation and better value for you.
South Middle School kitchen, wanted to touch base on this again on the same context of we've refreshed the budget estimate off of current design. It's the same, I would say, architectural graphic. If Bruce was here, he'd say yes, same architectural graphic. Showing the flow, free flow. We have got rid of the wing walls. We have the retracted pay station, POS station inside the secure area. The next item on this, the next step in this would be the kitchen equipment. This is another item that we request to be addressed at a special meeting on the 22nd, thereabouts, and it's for the equipment only. In past meetings, we've talked about breaking out and procuring this scope of work in 2 different ways. One, just getting the equipment, just get it. Some of the lead time is really excessive. There are some lead times that at the time, certain items were in the 30s of number of weeks to procure. Very scary numbers. What we're recommending and are preparing for is seek approval, get that on order, and have it delivered so that at an off-site location for which we can help control, and that way we can have it here or in the district in our contract's possession in advance of even the first sledgehammer going into the kitchen, before you take the kitchen out of service. So that way it puts all the chips into our favor, into the school district's favor, rather than on the chance of material procurement and supply chain and all these other outside factors. It brings those in-house. The more we can control those outcomes, the more we can make the outcome even more predictable than it is as it is. So the budgets are refreshed. We're proposing that. The reason why it should fall into a special committee versus today is just simply the timing of getting all of the input from the key persons involved, from everybody from Ken Kistler and McFarland Kistler and the consultant there, and getting some of the design change and allowing the process to go through the district, through Kelly, through the food service department, getting all of them through, and on top of that, going through the actual equipment list, the physical, we want this piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment. We didn't get handed that until the end of July, and so we're scrambling through here in order to do this. That's why we need a few weeks in order to do that. Right now, we're pricing this. It is out on the street right now under the guaranteed energy. So it's under the amendment. We're able to go out and get that pricing. We need those weeks in order to prepare that and present that to the committee for a potential amendment on the 22nd. Next question. These are the additionals?
No, these are just the ones that were,
Facility, I got glare.
yeah.
Somebody's been messing with my board. No, so the facility maintenance, these are the facility maintenance projects. I think this is the first time since June, it's all consolidated onto one. This is the results, the fruits of this committee's labor and the administration's labor, all summarized on the one sheet. of the actual maintenance projects. This is where we will be prepared for in September to bring to you a potential guaranteed energy savings agreement amendment to repeat kind of the same stuff we were doing this summer, with obviously the items that are noted within each line item. Some a little bit more HVAC in some buildings, some more repair to the building facade in others, etc. This is all consistent with the prioritization in the My Site IQ tool under Kelly and Sean's and Dr. Bolton's leadership. Through the last couple weeks, not only as we have been progressing through some of the buildings from this past summer, but also as we have been going out in response to the prioritization that the committee set in June, have identified and collectively in conjunction with the district administration, some additional items that we believe should be considered for prioritization into 2023. So the category of this would be all those budgetary numbers and those items that the committee reviewed in June. This budget estimate, the range, low and high, consistent with what we've done in the past, would be on top of, if the committee would like us to pursue those as part of a potential amendment for September, part of the whole 2023 facility maintenance.
And all of these scopes of work align with all of the facilities that have already been identified under the 2022 scope, and we could bid them as potential alternates, or we can wait and bid them a little bit later, get pricing information for them later, so the district has time to kind of, review their first priority and then elect to include these later if they so choose.
Correct. The nice thing about this is that if this committee did want to do a little wait and see approach, I would say the garage doors and ceramic tile / vinyl tile and epoxy floors, those are the type of decisions that would be the longer lead time, but if the committee wanted to hold off on September on these, it wouldn't be detrimental to next summer's projects.
Mr. Harper, are these items that have moved up on the prioritization, or are these new items that have been discovered?
So I would call these new items discovered. So the original evaluation of the district and conditions was 3+ years ago. And as we go around, this is just the evolution of the way that the system works, finding out some new things that weren't on the original list. So to answer your question, these are new additional.
And these are items that you would prioritize for the summer of 2023?
That's, we have to see if that fits within the budget for things that'd be, if we can, great. If we can't, we should look at future years. They need to go into the list. It's how soon can we do it?
We have individual price breakdown on these?
We can.
We can provide
We
that.
can.
Yeah, Kelly and I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
So that we can that'll help us prioritize.
Absolutely.
Some of the things mentioned talked about missing things or ceramic tile was not properly installed. When was it installed? And are we going back to the people that installed it and say that it wasn't properly installed? The same thing, you got add missing slip joint trim for the district support center. Was that something that should have been installed originally, and was that part of the, or has it just been so long that now it's passed and we need to just repair it?
I think for it's a life cycle time perspective, in the case of the slip joint at the district support center, it could be wind damage, it could be a variety of things.
So it may have been installed at one point, but it's no longer there.
It likely would have been.
What about the ceramic tile not properly installed? What is
Yes. So
that
that
about?
was previous to us in our experience with the school district, but there were missing expansion joints as part of the proper installation and the ceramic tile flooring system. There has to be expansion joints. Those were not installed, and therefore you're now starting to see a lot of cracked tile. Kelly's have to take some protective measures to make sure that there's no tripping or safety hazards that occur. I think in some areas you've actually put carpet down to ensure that there's no slipping. He can
Right.
elaborate any more if he
It's
needs
the
to.
same ceramic tile. It's under our feet now. It's throughout all the hallways in the high school. And I'm sure once I say this, it'll jump out in your mind if you haven't seen it. There's a lot of aluminum panels that cross the whole hallway. That's where the tiles keep cracking there. And I think at one point they tried replacing them, but the solution is to put an expansion joint in. It's meant to move and flex. The Band-Aid was to put these panels across, and they're all over the school. We're just looking to do it the right way.
Questions? Further questions?
July 11th, Kelly's office reached out and, for lack of a better phrase, said, we have a problem. Behind the district support center, you may recall in 2020, the district engaged SiteLogic to modify the existing fueling station for the bus fleet. In that project, we addressed the unleaded tank, and the district and SiteLogic opted not to address and replace the diesel tank. The diesel tank in the last 12 months has failed, and it has failed in the regards to the containment, the concrete containment around. Try to quickly describe how these things are put together. You have a double-walled steel bubble inside, steel tank inside, and then on a big gap of air. And then on the outside is your concrete box. The concrete box is meant to protect the steel bubble inside from fire and ballistics. Go figure. There is what we believe is water. Most professionals would say we don't know it's water, but we believe it's water. And at this point, the tank has been drained down, and thus putting what we believe a force on the roof, which is making a gap at the top wider. The hazard is not the condition that is now, because the tank's not leaking at this point. None of the indications and the safety provisions in the system indicate it has leaked or failed inside the box. Essentially, the box has failed. And so with that, the hazard is if the box fails and comes apart, does it destabilize the steel tank inside? Most likely. And specifically, the system is designed that it will have a residual amount of fuel in the pipes themselves, and those connections are fixed. So if the bubble inside moves, the pipes break or separate, and thus you get then a leak. The other hazard potentially to that is if the steel bubble becomes destabilized and the concrete falls apart, that bubble then makes contact to some other object and damages the tank, and then we have a second potential source of a leak. But right now it's not leaking, it's the steel ballistic and fire chamber. Where we, in conjunction with Kelly and his infinite amount of resources, we've done a couple things. We're recommending jointly some immediate action, and that's decommission the existing unit, remove the existing unit so that it doesn't fall apart. There is there's wetlands in close proximity on the back side of this photo, you might recall. Put in place before the start of school a temporary fueling option that is on-site. The alternative is off-site fueling at a much higher fuel rate, and Kelly and Sean can speak more about that, but that is a significant expense per week that we're trying to help avoid. Then come back in September with a more permanent solution proposed, and a GISA amendment proposed for that permanent solution. And then the lead time on a 10 or 12,000 gallon tank is upwards of a half a year from start to finish, from the word go to it shows up, anywhere from 16, but then you add warden and submittals, you get roughly about a half a year. And so that's why we're recommending a two-phase approach. The first one being approve an initial funding GISA amendment number 5, that would include an owner allowance. It's just basically an initial funding of roughly about $50,000. And then on top of that, when we come back with the permanent solution, that'll basically come off the top. The initial funding allows for SiteLogic to engage those contractors in order to respond quickly and gets money into those subcontractors' hands faster than delaying for the permanent fix and then going through invoicing, payment, and so forth. It would mean that they likely would not see cash for any of their efforts over the next 2 weeks for 3 or 4 months. So we're thinking that this is our recommendation for a best approach, as in creating an owner allowance. Anything that's not used, well, obviously would go back to the district via less items charged against it. If the school district said, no, we want to procure this item on the fly through CoStars or this way or through your fueling vendor, it allows the district to do that, and we can support in whichever way Kelly and the administration feels appropriate.
How old is this?
It's 2004, makes it about 18 years old.
18 years old.
Definitely premature failure.
I was gonna say, what's a footer underneath and what's the base of under the?
It's concrete. It's at least a 6 or 8 inch pad plus concrete under that. I mean, none of that structure seems to have moved.
That's what I was gonna ask.
It seems
So
like
do
it's
you see any cracks
internal.
in underneath there?
Right, we have a lot of hypotheses of water and different things, but the bottom line is it's failed. It's not repairable. The manufacturer of the tank's no longer in business. Certain vendors don't even want to support it, so.
Who put it in? Who's the contractor?
I
who put it in?
I don't know the
Business
specific contractor, was part of a Dewey engineering project.
So I'm looking at where it's located actually, so it's sitting, like on the side. That seems like where a lot of water would come down the hill. That seems logical. Would that have been preventable in any other way besides, I mean,
Yeah, it's definitely on an asphalt and concrete pad, and there's containment around it, just because those are the rules and permitting requirements. If it did have a leak, there has to be some containment there. And all the stormwater, we actually do stormwater testing to make sure there's no petroleum contaminants twice a year. It's part of the permitting process. We don't think that that's shifted. We think it's internal, that it's just a premature failure. And without taking the lid off, we can't really say, okay, we were right, it was water inside, or what it might have been, but it's definitely a premature failure. Should have been at least another 10 years, if not 20, that we should have to replace this.
didn't they fish any kind of like video camera in there to get like any kind of surveillance to see what's underneath the tank that's inside that's actually in there?
We
I'm using
haven't.
logic, I'm sorry.
We haven't, it's just like we've accepted it's failed and we need to move on.
I believe we have a couple photos from peeking in the crack.
Yep.
The basis is that without knowing exactly what that material is and knowing it with a test report, having sample tested it, should that thing come apart, it is believed by multiple sources that the Pennsylvania DEP will treat it as hazardous.
Certainly.
And so with the proximity of the wetlands, not to mention the manufacturers no longer around, you generally can't modify fueling tanks without the approval of the manufacturer. So nobody else is going to recertify this, which means you won't be able to maintain a DEP permit for it, or an LNI permit for that matter. Puts all the moons into the alignment of, it is pretty old. Wish we could have gotten another year ago. So the hazard is getting that interstitial fluid addressed, and that's one way to just drain it down and remove it.
So they're not doing it this way anymore? Or is there a new concept for when you put a tank in, it's gonna be, or are we gonna have the same problem prematurely again?
Because
Sure,
of
they
the
come up with something
location of
new,
where it's
right?
at, yeah.
Well, there's different, the requirements is the ballistic cover. That's what the concrete was intended for 18 some odd years ago. Obviously, technologies are different. It also goes hand in hand with, you could get your hands on different materials, but at what cost?
So are you suggesting the same type of replacement or no?
No, at this time, we're still trying to address the problem at hand. We haven't gone into the homework yet. We'll have that prepared for, if the committee so says go, we'll be preparing that for this
You don't have a
discussion.
choice, right?
Yeah.
Big leaks when you're not.
Yeah, you're,
Yeah.
What is the
Take care of stuff.
timing for getting it emptied and making sure that that is not a hazard if it were to collapse or whatever? How quickly can that happen and what does that look like?
So from a timing perspective, our goal is within the next 2-3 weeks. It's multiple, and that's misleading because there's multiple things, multiple steps that need to occur. Kelly and the district actually have step number 1 already scheduled for tomorrow, and that's the residual diesel inside the steel bubble, inside the double wall thing. The next step would then be
To pull that out? Is that
to
what you're
drain
saying?
out the
Right,
remaining, I
okay.
think there's
Yeah. So to empty
a
the
few
tank-
hundred gallons
There's
in there still.
300 gallons currently, and that should be pumped out before lunchtime tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so empty the tank before lunchtime tomorrow,
That's a big-
okay?
an empty tank is
That's a good first step.
So that's the
Okay.
first step. And the next step, and I'm ignoring the temporary fueling provisions because that's concurrently running between both. The next step would be to disconnect and pull out the diesel fuel that's still in the lines. That's in between the two, from point A to from disconnect, depower, salvage those pipes because those are all reusable on the next system. The fueling station dispenser, reusable for the next version, should be. Those are all items that we would disconnect, make safe, and then at that point, there'd be another vendor that would come in and drain down, sample, store probably steel drums, I would presume, the interstitial liquid that's inside the concrete, outside the steel bubble. Send that out to sampling. When that test comes back, they'll figure out what landfill to send it to, presumably. But in that timetable, have that drained down, we're guessing is about 2 weeks. Part of that is also have a crane, take it out, put it on a flatbed and go. The temporary fueling, we're still coordinating with Kelly, is we're not gonna put it back onto this same pad, such that we can put the permanent system in without disturbing the temporary. That'll be in place for roughly six or 8 months.
Are you saying that we will reuse this site for the permanent? Or this site is no longer gonna be in use after you take it all down? Will you put the new unit back at the same spot?
We're proposing to put the new unit back in the same spot. It lowers your input impact. It also doesn't impact your increasing your impervious square footage of the township that you already have to kind of, I guess.
Do you rework the concrete on the base?
Let's just
Does that all get removed and
You need new footers or
base
something
plan?
like that.
That's a potential. It's a strong potential.
Yeah, you're probably gonna need new footers. If there's failure underneath that,
Yeah.
it's looking like that, you probably need some new footers in underneath there. I mean, something's washing away, something's digging at the concrete underneath.
But once you get the size of the tank, then you can do the engineering behind what you need to support.
Pictures are great. If you had more pictures to show and share.
But then we'll be over our 30-minute window.
Oh, you can send them. You can put them on Google Docs.
Let me just add that the last piece of urgency with this. So it's budget driven. Every day that we don't have temporary in place, my math says it's about $2,500 a day additional to pay market price versus what we have contracted with the IU. So getting the temporary in place is important budget-wise, about $2,500 a day extra.
I believe Kelly had also included about an extra half an hour per bus driver.
True, there's the whole time of off-site fueling and labor. To get it back on site and temporary is definitely a big budget concern of ours.
And what's the likely timeline for that to be operational?
So one of the hurdles we crossed with the help of Site Logic is we were having trouble with DEP getting us the approvals or understanding what was necessary. And we made those connections on Friday. Actually, they had a representative Stats on the phone to help us get through to DEP. And I think that expedited the process of moving past that. So that was helpful.
So do we have a sense for, now that we're moved past that process, what is the likelihood of when the temporary solution will be in place?
We're hoping in the next, I'm gonna say, week to 2 weeks, we could have it in place if everything else comes in alignment.
So we're hopeful before the start of school that the temporary will be in place, which obviously when the heaviest use of our buses.
What's the
Yes.
approximate cost of the temporary?
So it's a monthly rent,
Oh.
and it's an installation and a removal fee. I think it's $300 a month. I haven't got the contract yet. I was shocked at the price too. I mean, and it's through our vendor,
That's a no-brainer.
Papco.
You can save that, you can pay that off in 1 day of saving.
With the installation of a temporary tank, what DEP regulations do we have to be looking at as a school district above and beyond just putting a tank on the ground? Is there additional
Can't
work
just
that has
sit
to
there.
go in
What
to
do you
securing
think?
that?
Surprise to me, their answer was, any temporary tank that's in place less than 12 months does not have any special permitting or regulations.
You're
Really?
kidding.
Can we put a new one in every 12
I'm
months?
just gonna say every 11 and a half months you swap it out.
We'll get it.
But what about the
That
safety
was-
stuff
that was
around
back.
it?
Sure.
I mean, the temporary thing.
We also have to worry about LNI. There's 2 agencies we have to worry about, so that's the DEP part. LNI is the other part on the tank stuff, which we're still trying to figure out.
Should we wrap?
The temporary solution will have security around it from a standpoint of not being hit by a bus and
Yeah.
Right.
accidents.
We'll likely have to have bollards in place or something for
Yes.
sure, some
Yeah.
kind of protection.
Okay.
I believe that'll come through as part of the LNI. DEP was surprisingly easy. LNI, I'm sure there'll be a few other protective measures.
And that's what that, the proposed owner allowance amendment through the GISA, amendment number 5, the committee is comfortable with it. That's the type of stuff that as we go through the process and LNI says, hey, you need this many bollards or this, we can react quickly, put those in place and support the start of school.
So how do we keep it going? What do we need to do here tonight to say, we have to do temporary, right?
The next step on this process would be to recommend to the board, obviously, the approval of GISA amendment number 5 in the amount, I believe it's $59,250. That's the taxes and insurance and bond costs on top of the $50,000 owner allowance that will come off and return back to the district via credit and amendment projected number 7 for the 2023
Every
project.
day we delay, it's $2,500.
Once school starts.
One school.
Once school
July.
starts, okay, so
When
we're
we're in
not-
full operation, it's about 750 gallons per day of diesel.
So we should get started.
Yep.
I say
ASAP.
go.
Yesterday.
Well, the emptying of the tank and the installation of the temporary is going to be scheduled.
In process.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, there's no, and that's the emergency situation. It's
Yeah.
not an approval that needs to be done that. The GISA is then for the work on the next solution of getting that box out of there and
Yes.
designing whatever
We
the
have-
new box is.
Well, we have
For
12
the-
months to do that, right?
Right.
Because you have a temporary.
And the power to the temporary
Right,
tank that the
right.
fueling company's not gonna do,
Okay.
and so forth.
What kind of cost are we looking at? Not the $60,000.
For the big picture,
Yeah, that's the number.
there's
I'm the
been some
finance
really-
guys.
There's been some wild ranges out there. It's gonna come down to which option we want. Right now, it's a 10,000 gallon tank. There's suggestions that actually increase that to 12,000, which will lessen the number of times the district needs to refuel and so forth.
And so you'll bring options to us in
Yes.
terms of prices.
And there's no chance that any kind of insurance we have will cover any
We check.
of this.
Line of questions.
Anything groundwater.
It's been asked many
good question.
times.
Oh,
Stone face.
He's like, yeah, I got them all.
Throw the shot.
That's what I figured. First phone call I made, it's insurance company. He was
The groundwater thing.
All right, next item.
Yeah.
can't prove one.
This brings us kind of now to the financial analysis. So looking now at the 2023 budgeted projects that you're seeing, again, we talked about how we're providing updated pricing. So last pricing was just before summer. And now here we are towards the end of summer. And what you're looking at as the scope breakouts is essentially how we'll be bidding these. These are, kind of those big buckets, big, excuse me, too much alliteration. The bid packages that we'll be putting together that you'll have to that we're looking for action on. So all of the phase 2 paving and site work, everything that we were talking about at the operations maintenance garage, everything on the western side of the high school campus, and all of these other little site and sidewalk issues that we'll be continuing to resolve at the other district facilities throughout the district. The salt storage building you're familiar with, as you are the garage, the kitchen, and then all of those 2023 facility maintenance scope that we kind of rolled up. So we have a low and a high range. What we saw as we went through this exercise, and we didn't give, you know, a detailed breakout because we know we wanted to keep this conversation short and sweet, as suggested. But what you're seeing is a slight shift. Some things are kind of coming down, other things are going up, but this is our new range now. So we're looking at 9.1 to just over $10 million. Previously, we were talking, I think, at 6, and we were looking at like 9.2. That was kind of our range. So a slight increase there. But what you're also seeing is those additional facility maintenance scopes that we've just provided, just as a measure of convenience for you for consideration.
The one thing we would like to highlight also on this slide is if you look at the next 2 facility committee meetings, despite this being 2023 work and you have just approved your fiscal budget 2 months ago, these will be secured and under contract, or at least in front of the committee by the end of October with hard numbers.
Yes. So what that brings us to actually are the board and committee action items. These lists are going to seem a little overwhelming. We've broken them out to you just to try to provide a little bit of simplicity and clarity. This is today's meeting. This is everything that we talked about, and you know, the recommendations that we're looking for, authorization that we're speaking, those publicly bid items that are not a part of the GISA, those actually have to be authorized by the board. We are asking for recommendation from the board to put those out to bid. So you have those items there. We are respectfully requesting a special facility committee meeting for action on the kitchen equipment, looking at the change orders associated with that salt storage package, just to help provide an economy of scale as it comes to that project, and then obviously that diesel tank decommission and removal. Just as a little checklist or to-do list, Sean, Callie, we put the 10-day notice on there for you. To make that recommendation as part of the sunshine, we do have to put a 10-day notice publicly for all our GISA amendments. So that's what those items are that you're seeing in front of you.
And it doesn't obligate the board to approve those amendments. It's a prerequisite for the board to even consider them.
For phase 2.
Melissa, you'll send me the notice?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep,
And we just have to put that on the website, correct?
that's correct.
All right,
Yep.
we can handle that.
The August 22nd facility committee, this is where we're kind of building out those special meeting items, looking for that recommendation to board approval. So number 6 would be that South Middle School kitchen. We're looking at that salt storage, salt shed package, and our GISA amendment. I mean, it's very repetitive, I know, but we just want to very clearly identify, you know, this is what we're looking for at these milestone dates. And we understand that this committee does have a full agenda, so we understand that we are not making a very light request on your behalf for your time.
If those 3 items are in that meeting, how long are we looking at? How
Our
long do
meeting-
those 3 items take?
Since we already recapped all of the items, it's just here's the number in comparison to the budget.
Yeah.
So you think it's a 15, 20-minute meeting in
Yes.
terms of assuming not to?
Yes.
On how many questions? Yes.
Why can that not wait till September and then be voted on? Like, why does that have to be done so they can be voted? Because the whole reason to do that is to vote on them then at the regular
Correct.
voting meeting, which
Yes.
happens right afterwards. So we're gonna talk about it, and then it's gonna show up on the agendas.
Yes.
Why are you suggesting it has to be done in August and that it cannot wait until September?
With the longstanding practice of the committee reviews all business prior to the board, the next opportunity for the board to vote on something would have been September 27th. With regards to the middle school kitchen, That's a whole month on a very volatile, very long lead time package of just kitchen equipment. This summer's project's not immune from that, but we're addressing those. That's on us for us to deal with. This helps with a much larger scope of work, put the district in a much better position going into that summer. The salt shed, if we don't go with this particular dual phase in the special meeting, the salt shed will not be operational until 2023, until January.
That's the December to January decision.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's just simply, do we want the salt shed now, or, and run the risk of just maybe missing it by a couple weeks before the winter season? Or
Like-
just be smack dab in the middle of the
Like
winter
the tennis.
season?
It's a
Well,
farmer's
yeah,
almanac
that's
thing.
cool. I mean, the weather with that will affect your concrete and all that, and that could be delayed,
Nobody-
right, if you don't start early.
It will increase concrete costs, but that is also a risk that you already have with just cold weather concrete.
Well, that's what I mean, the weather, it's better
Put
to do
blankets on the concrete and stuff like that. roll it
is.
up.
Straw.
Okay, and you just talked about the
Blankets,
fuel tank and why
straw.
that
To keep
timing
it warm.
worked.
Yep.
Okay.
The other slides that we're projecting is for the committee's benefit, that if you ever wanted to skip a meeting, there's a lot, you kind of know what's coming.
Yes.
We don't want to skip meetings.
Yes. So, and then, September facility meeting just kind of wraps up all of those things that we were just talking about, gets us to kind of those board decision dates for all of our projects to kind of be voted on before the end of this year. I don't want to belabor anybody's time by reading everything. They're illustrated here, and then you also have them in your packet. This is a heads up of, what's coming. In addition to this month's special committee meeting, we're also seeking special meeting for September. And this, again, just kind of closes all of those packages up for the remainder of the year, puts everything in a good place for us to start going into the winter and spring for next year. And then we end with the October, just maybe general housekeeping items, placeholders. And that brings us kind of to those August board action items, which we've just talked about. So facility committee recommendations and then board action items. I'm happy to elaborate on any of these, but it's everything that we have just discussed in this meeting to take us to the end of the year. So I think that was a little longer than 30 minutes, but we're happy to provide any more detail, photographs or schedules as requested to help us meet these timelines. And if you have any more questions, Andy and I are always available either through Sean or Kelly to be in contact about what we're seeking here.
I will send this presentation, once I get it
Yes.
from Melissa, I'll send it to the board tomorrow, so you all have it, to reference, because there's a lot there.
Yeah, I'll just leave the USB here. You can keep that, and you'll have it in.
That's it, we'll get it off the.
Yeah.
So,
It's
one
on-
other question. It says overall campus paving and parking plan has been included in this packet for reference. Is it in here or where? I don't see it.
What
I
page
may have
are you,
missed it.
what page are you reading that from?
sorry.
There's no page.
Oh,
Phase 2 paving and parking at high school campus. It says an overall campus paving and parking plan included.
oh, what? I think that maybe was an attachment, but I will include that with Sean.
Yeah, I just don't
It just shows your high school.
It's just mostly repaving stuff, right?
It is, and it kind of breaks
There's
up.
no new lots in there.
There's no new lots. It just illustrates the overall
There's less
campus
lots.
plan.
We pulled those
As
lots.
you guys have, the committee removed lot number 2.
We can use it for.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
folks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Been waiting to sneak on through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next on our list is the water tower at West Rock Hill Elementary School. Gentlemen.
Yeah, so I'll give the pre-introduction as they're setting up. So a few months ago, I brought to the committee some new business that Dan Preston from North Penn Water Authority had sent me some information. I brought it to the board. This is about a potential water tower at West Rock Hill Elementary. And again, Dan Preston from North Penn Water is going to give us a presentation on some details and a proposal.
Okay. Having a little trouble reading my notes here. It's a little small on this laptop, but thank you Kelly, for that introduction, and we appreciate the opportunity on your busy agenda to fit us in. We really appreciate it. we think that we have a good compelling story here that you'll be interested in. So who am I? I'm Dan Preston, I'm a PE in Pennsylvania, 36 years in the water utility business. Chief Engineering Officer for almost 23 years with North Penn Water Authority. And who is North Penn Water Authority? Now, some of you may not know who we are. North Penn is a municipal, regional, nonprofit, government-owned provider serving a population of just under 100,000. We serve about 36,000 customers in 19 municipalities in Bucks and Montgomery County. We've been providing water service to Sellersville, Barrow, and West Rock Hill since May of 2011 when we purchased the system from the Borough of Sellersville. And we're a nationally recognized water utility for exceptional service. So all of our water comes from Forest Park in Chalfont, PA. It's a state-of-the-art treatment facility. We receive national recognition for that, as well as our distribution system. So we're really focused on quality water service from the source to the tap. So that's who we are. This is our service area, and mostly in Montgomery County.
It won't work on the TV
Oh,
because of the way.
okay. Well, I guess I'll be pointing.
Yeah, just
The
don't
area that
touch the
we're-
screen.
Yeah, don't touch it. So the area that we're looking at here obviously is in West Rock Hill.
Don't touch the
Do
screen.
that. My depth perception was off a little bit, sorry about that. So much for my 12-minute time, right?
Hey, you should be a winner.
Okay. There we go, yeah.
The
So,
cold front moving in from the east.
so this is the area, I'm gonna stay nice and far away. Now that's the West Rock Hill, just north of Sellersville Borough in West Rock Hill Elementary School is what we're looking at. So this is a school on fire. This is a photo of a school on fire. What emotions does this image evoke? Horror, outrage, concern, sadness, maybe even, maybe a little bit of all these emotions, maybe some more.
Stupidity.
As we serve our communities, now I wish I printed out my notes. As we serve our communities together, none of us ever wants us to see this happen, right? To one of our schools, and if we're the ones responsible for these facilities, it's even more of an imperative, because we certainly wouldn't want to see anything happen like this on our watch, but we want to plan for it, right? We want to make sure that we plan for it and that we do everything we can to ensure that if the unspeakable does happen, then we have the systems in place that are designed to minimize property loss and then also to minimize the impact and potential loss of life. So it's pretty important stuff that we take very seriously. And we think that the school district can help us regarding the West Rock Elementary School. I come before this committee this evening because we need the help of Penn School District to help us achieve our goal for this facility. So, and it's a beautiful facility. So just a little background. West Elementary School was constructed in 1990, as most of you probably know, and Sellersville extended water to the school as the owner of the water system. That was extended from Lawn Avenue all the way across the property, all the way over to Washington Avenue. So MPWA purchased the water system in May of 2011, as I previously mentioned. Since then, we spent over $8 million to improve the system. And the West Rockville portion of the system, though, still needs some improvement, which is why I'm here tonight. So we completed a study of the West Rock Hill service area, and I just figured out how do you do this. We completed a study of the West Rock Hill service area, which includes the institutional areas, by the way, of Grandview Hospital, Penn Foundation, the outpatient center, Hidden Meadows on the Ridge. These are all areas in that portion of West Rock Hill Township. And of course, the elementary school, right? So we're on these level of service goals. First of all, during the study, we identified some performance gaps. We need to improve fire protection in this area. We need to improve pressure stability, enhance water service reliability, and also water quality improvement. So these are all things that we need in this service area to bring the level of service up to what we strive for for all 36,000 customers in our system. So the recommendations of this study was to construct an elevated gravity storage tank. Put that down. You construct an elevated gravity storage tank, and that addresses the fire protection and pressure. Why is this helpful for us? Currently, we provide pressure and fire flow in this area with a mechanical pumping system. It's just not as reliable, doesn't keep the pressure as stable as we like, and we don't have fire flow on demand. So these are all important considerations.
What do you mean by on demand? Like,
When you have gravity storage,
yeah, it's on demand, but how does it work now? It turns out.
with the mechanical pumping system, it's gonna respond to pressure, so there's always a delay.
It picks up. Oh, it's a
It's
lag,
not
but
instantaneous.
yeah, okay. It's available, it's just not as efficient.
It's not as efficient, correct. And also to improve water main looping in the area, and that addresses the other two concerns, which is reliability and water quality. When we loop main, we're able to get water to a location from two separate points. So we can get two-way flow for fire flow, for instance, into an area. And with water quality then, we eliminate dead ends, so we're able to keep the water circulating, and that helps us as far as keeping the water moving and not stagnant, so that's kind of important. So this was included in your packet, and so we wanted to talk about the three components of our proposal, which will accomplish our service goals. One is the water main ownership, we want to address that, the system looping, and then also this new tank that we're talking about. And we'll talk about how that all plays in together. Let me go back here first. So let's talk about the system ownership first. The school district owns from there all the way to there. That's your service line. So that was the extension off of Lawn Avenue. So that's a long dead end line that you're getting water service from. To complicate matters further, at some point there was a tri-party agreement signed between the school district, Grandview Hospital Outpatient Center, and the Sellersville Borough to provide a service off of your service to the outpatient center. Now that's something we would never do, but that's the situation that we've inherited, so we need to address that. We can clean that up very easily if we dedicate assets of that water line over to North Penn Water Authority and make it part of our distribution system. The second component of the proposal is the connecting to this brand new main we just installed on Washington Avenue. It's still under construction. It went in last month, but we're starting to wrap things up. We're working with the township on that because they're paving Washington Avenue. We put in a stub here for future tie-in to this main, so then we could tie into this new distribution main, and then this becomes all the property of North Penn Water Authority, and also reduces your liability as providing service to the outpatient center. For instance, if there was an issue with this line right now in this area, you could potentially put the outpatient center out of business. I don't think you really want to be in that position, but that's the way it's set up right now. So the tank location, let's talk about that. That's the third component of this proposal, and probably the high-profile item. The tank would sit very close to the Lawn Avenue at the far back of the property in this wooded area. Now, we previously had done a wetlands delineation on that, so we're showing where the wetlands are. That's this area in purple, and the buffer is this yellow line. So we can squeeze a little water storage tank in that corner of the property. And let me move on. So the proposal, just to summarize it, dedicate waterline assets on the West Rockville Elementary School as part of the NPW water distribution system, connect the new water main on Washington Avenue to the existing main on the school property, and then finally provide land so that we can construct this water storage tank, that spot in the back. So the big question, what's this tank? What would this tank look like? It's a spheroid design, and I'll show you some renderings of it in a second. It'd be composed of steel in that 300,000 to 500,000 gallon capacity range. Diameter of the top bowl, 46 to 55 feet in diameter, and the height would be approximately 131 feet high. So this is a little photo rendering of that, what it would look like from the parking lot of the school and with the tank in the background. This is a similar perspective, but farther back. This is standing at the entrance to the school on Washington Avenue. Again, it's not this massive tank, and it kind of fits in with things, and it's off in the background.
If it was green and had a big P on it, it would fit in with things and whatnot.
Maybe we can talk.
The ram head, no?
If you wanted to put a logo on it, that's where the township would have to sign off on that.
It's easy.
Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
Sorry.
So the direct benefits to Penryn School District of why this would be good for you guys, it greatly improves fire protection to the school. So by putting in a gravity storage tank, we will increase fire flow capacity by 2.5 times what it is currently. Now, this is an institutional area. We've got all these institutional uses that would also benefit from it, but we would, I'm estimating about 2.5 times increase in fire flow, which is really important to get the proper fire flow to the facility.
Is that for water coming out of a hydrant, or is it from a sprinkler system?
Yeah, it would be 2.5 times coming out of the hydrant.
Hydrant, we don't have to do it on a sprinkler.
No.
I don't think so. Okay.
But there would also be better pressure,
Sure. No, I understand.
sustained pressure in a fire flow situation. It also gets the school district out of the water line ownership and maintenance business, which I don't think you really want to be in that. And also enhances service reliability and domestic water quality with the looping, the Washington Avenue, the new distribution main, that whole component of it. That's really the main benefits that I've been able to identify to the school district for this property. So what are the next steps? Well, if the committee concurs to move forward with this proposal for further discussions, we would continue project development, and we'd develop some design drawings. We'd have progress meetings with the school district for discussion. And if we continue moving forward with it, we'd be looking at finalizing some legal documents and initiating some permit applications. So that's where we are in the process. What we're just looking for from the committee tonight is that you would concur that this is worth further discussion and project development to move hopefully towards some agreement on signing off officially on the project with the board.
Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Preston?
Two slides ago, please, if you don't mind. The maintenance. What is the maintenance that the school district has to the water lines?
So it's, if anything happens to the underground water lines, it's on us to repair them
Okay.
at this point. I think the proposal would mean North Penn Water Authority will be responsible up to the building, if I understand it correctly.
There's
Up to the
let me go
building
back.
from Lawn Avenue?
Let me go back to
From what?
From the new main.
From the new main.
Right.
Okay,
No.
so
Washington.
there's a valve that sits out here,
Okay.
and that would be the termination of the water line and then the water service into the building.
But once we
But that's
connect from
changed.
Washington Avenue, there's only,
It's a short
it's
distance.
just short, like
It's
we
a
wouldn't
short
even
run.
need the rest of that, right?
It's a shorter run, so we wouldn't need the rest of that, right?
We need the rest of what?
If you're saying you're gonna tie into Washington Avenue, it's a short run where you were saying it's, or does it still have to go back to that main point back there?
Well, see, if we tie this in and then we loop everything, so it comes down Washington Avenue to Air Avenue down here. Sorry, I don't have it on the screen. Maybe see it a little bit. No, you can't. That's gonna come down to Air Avenue and back out to Lawn Avenue.
So that's the
So we have this
circulation.
nice
It's a
big
big
loop,
loop.
nice big loop with the tank in the middle, and we'll have premium water service at that point for the school.
What are our plans for that area there? Is it just
It's
open
wetlands.
field, or what is it?
It's
trees.
wooded and I don't believe used right now.
No.
It's wooded and it's primarily wetlands. We're gonna need variances, obviously, from the township, but we're gonna need this as setback variances and height variances primarily are the two key ones. It's zoned good for this, but those are the two key variances. We're not touching any of this area here where it would be potentially used in the future for athletic fields or a school expansion or something like that.
What about our other projects that we have? Our paving, is it going to disturb work that we are doing now?
Well, they would,
You
we
want
wouldn't
to
do the
return
work,
it?
would we?
No,
Well, but I
we're
mean-
looking at
It's
not a-
site logics with our other opportunities for, I think we have a loading dock that has to be repaired at West Rock Hill.
Yes,
Yep, right.
that is slated for repairs. One of the 2023 additional projects would actually be to expand and enhance the design of the existing loading dock to make it a little bit easier for the truck to back in. I'm not quite sure if I could see exactly where this is kind of, you know.
No, we'd have to coordinate that if need be.
You're saying in this area here, loading dock in this area?
Actually, it's on the back side of the building. So,
Over here? Over here?
loading dock, I believe is.
Oh, over here. Oh, I see it now.
So the question is, does this work interrupt any of the work that's currently considered?
I don't think so, but it would cross the parent drop-off loop that was just extended or redone between Washington and the building. And it would be minor, it's
That would be
probably
this
like a
area.
12-inch trench.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, there's a new, right.
So,
Well, then you would take care of.
We would have to restore it to whole. From the timing of doing this little piece here, we could wait, we're probably 1.5 to 2 years out if we move things through the school board, as far as the tank construction. That really wouldn't become important until this is in. So, I mean, this wouldn't be really that important until that goes in. So we could wait a little bit and make sure that we don't impact any of your plans. We can look at ways to minimize the impacts to the improvements that have been done previously there.
If we don't put it there, what's your alternate plan for putting the tank? Where you,
We have, good question. We've been going back and forth with a lot of different locations. We originally were looking at this site a number of years back, and then we had discussions with the township about potentially putting it on some municipal property. That's kind of not, that's
so
going,
would
that's
you,
kind of at a stalemate situation right now, so.
would you compensate us for that?
We could certainly work out some compensation.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
don't know
not
what
much
that's gonna
benefit
look
from
like,
Yeah, free
we-
water or something?
and it would have to be, just like you folks, we have a board of directors, we would sit down and discuss things. So we can't stand up here and say we can do this or that, but we can certainly entertain it.
Yeah, I think it's a great presentation, and we really appreciate you doing this for us, bringing it to the committee's review. We'll certainly look it over, and we'll definitely get back to you, looking at the proposal.
Okay.
How we can move to next steps.
Would you like a copy of this PowerPoint?
Without a doubt.
That would be helpful,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay, I'll email it to Kelly.
Yeah,
He can
perfect.
just send it from
Excellent.
there. Okay.
actually, we already have, it's on that computer.
Oh, yeah, you do.
If there's anything else.
It's on the
I-
computer,
if there's anything else.
Absolutely.
Actually, Dan back there's probably already sending it to Kelly.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks,
sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for your time, appreciate it.
Mr. Daubert, let's go to item number 4.
Yeah.
School bus bid.
School bus bid. Diane's gonna pull that up on the screen for us so that the public can see that. And it's also on your computers and on your board docs. All right, so this is just a one-pager. This is the results of our bus bids that we put out last month. If you remember, we have $500,000 in the budget this year, down from about $850,000 pre-pandemic. So normally we would be able to get about 5 vehicles with $500,000. Unfortunately, with the increase in the costs that we realized, we're looking at the ability to purchase 4 vehicles this year with that $500,000. We're going to get 3 of the large 72 passenger buses that you're used to seeing out on the road, and 1 48 passenger bus with a wheelchair lift. You can see that Wolfington has the lowest bid on the 72 passenger bus. Their low bid was $114,715 each. And on the 48 passenger bus, Wolfington also had the lowest bid, $127,039 for that bus. We put 2 vehicles out for trade, numbers 22 and 115. The trade-in value from Wolfington is $1,000 on each of those buses. So the trade-in value doesn't make any difference, compared to the bid prices and so forth. So what we're looking at is what we would recommend and request from you is that we award the bid to Wolfington Body Company. The 72 passenger buses total $344,145. The 48 passenger bus $127,039. Take the $2,000 out for the trade. Total is $469,184. And we're about $30,000 under budget.
Nice.
We have four vehicles.
So you normally would want to get 5?
We would normally, before COVID and the price increases, we would have got 5 vehicles. Buses were between 90 and 95,000 for the 72 passenger buses before the impact of COVID. And
does that impact maintenance costs? Because you got to keep older buses running longer now, right? A little bit.
Yes, we will keep another bus around a little bit longer. But what this really means is, as next year, as we try to get back to our pre-COVID cut to our replacement schedule for buses, we'd like to get back to that 8 bus a year. 8 buses, which is what we were doing, which is instead of going to be 800,000, we're now going to talk about $1 million for 8 buses instead of 800,000.
Well, that really keeps on moving.
So that's going to be an impact.
I mean, are they breaking down more because we're not replacing them quick enough? There's costs associated with that.
So these 2 buses are without going back and looking at Jess's information she gave us back in June, those 2 buses, they're probably over 200,000 miles or nearing 200,000 miles.
Well, at some point it's.
We have some buses that are 200,000 miles that run great. We have some buses, every once in a while you get a lemon, right? We get a bus at 175,000, they can't wait to get rid of it because it's a problem. But that's how we figure out which ones to get rid of, is the ones that are costing us.
Do we have any experience between the types, the bus manufacturers, and which
Yeah.
one tends to last longer than another, or no?
We've had all 3 brands of buses. I don't know that any one is any better than the other. I think the mechanics would probably tell you, and the drivers would give you a different opinion. Jess would give you her opinion, but the Wolfington is the international, and we've had good experience with those.
What is an interesting question? I mean, if you had
But
feedback, I
as
don't
we-
know if you
Go ahead,
get
sorry.
that feedback. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting if one's breaking down, that would be part of the,
Calculus.
it might be worth paying more for something.
Yeah.
But I think Wolfington's got a good reputation, so.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
And
okay.
again, these are public bids, so they're all responsible bidders, and so it's hard to standardize a fleet when you have to public bid.
Will you put the old ones up for auction? Maybe get more than 1,000?
Unless somebody wants to live it.
No, well, I mean,
Unless somebody
I've
wants to
seen
live
some of the stuff you put on there, and it people will always buy them.
Yeah, we actually have some old vans on the public surplus list that we will put on municipal bid. The old buses will trade in.
I bid on some stuff
We got the new tires off and we got all the engine. As long as we got
Any other good questions?
there. You need a level.
Hearing none, let's move on. Let's look at obsolete items, number 5.
All right, obsolete items this month. West Rock Hill has a library weeding log. Nothing new there than what you see each month from the libraries. Guth Elementary, and we'll put that on public surplus. Guth Elementary has some library tables that we'll put on public surplus, and some old textbooks, an old phone. We will recycle or donate those. Central Middle School, various equipment to get rid of at Central Middle School, and then some student chairs, and then teleboard. Again, we'll scrap whatever is really bad, we'll recycle, we will municipal bid. If we can't sell it, we'll then we'll scrap it. But, Mr. Schuler always tries to sell it first. At the high school, we have some old sewing machines that we're replacing. Public surplus those. If we can't sell them, we'll dispose of them. Some textbooks that we will donate, and various science equipment that is either recycled, public surplus, or trash. And our new science coordinator has went through a lot of old stuff, and he's purging stuff that's not being used. And with some of it, his recommendation is to just throw it away. Some of it he thinks we can sell. So we take his lead and we work through that process with him. Technology department, we have the recycling list for July and August, and then we also have monitors, 2 lists of monitors for public surplus. Grass Elementary School, we have tables and desks that we will scrap. I think they're in pretty bad shape. So Paul Silvestri, our one maintenance gentleman, will look at all that type of stuff. If he feels that it can be sold, we'll try to sell it. Sometimes it's just pretty bad, and we scrap it and get rid of it. Sometimes we can make more on the metal scrapping it. So, then at the transportation department, here are the 4 minivans that we're going to put on municipal bid. These are all minivans, well over 200,000 miles. They're pretty shocked. We've got our life out of them, and we don't really want anybody in them anymore. So we'll sell them.
Okay.
And then middle school, we have computer kits that will be recycled or trash. So, all right, that's what we have.
Any questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, we will close out tonight's committee meeting. Our next facilities committee meeting is September 12th, 2022.
Onward to finance. Here we go. Any public comment? Did anybody come in that I missed? I don't believe so. All right, we can move forward with the first item on the list there, Mr. Delbert.
Yeah.
Review contracts.
Yes, sir. Okay, we have quite a few contracts, and I know that you folks have a very long night ahead of you, so I will go as fast as I can through these. If any questions, stop me, please. First one is Buxmont Academy. This is a placement agreement for 4 spots for special education at $160.79 a spot, and 3 spots for regular education, $131.94. I'm sorry, 2 spots for regular education. And that contract is for this school year. Next one is Explorations, PHP. This is a partial hospitalization for the student identified as 2023-01, $85 per hour. Last year this was $75 an hour, so we're seeing a price increase with this company. Next is Wood Services, Education and Extended School Year Services for student 2023-02. It's for next school year. Cost is $86,506.03. D is Wood Services again, student 2023-03 for next school year, and the cost for that is $63,456.90. Moving on to E, Keystone Freedom Academy, educational services again for student identified as 2023-04. It is for next school year. It's $246 per day that the student is provided services. Next one is a new one. This is Plumstead Christian School, transportation services for the district students that attend that school. Again, this is a new contract. $12.48 per student per day for transportation. This is a direct result of our lack of licensed school bus drivers here in the district. So we are attempting to use whatever services we can find in order to be free up drivers to provide services to the kids that go to the our buildings, to the school district buildings. So this will allow us to pull actually 2 drivers from that service, and they'll then be able to run full routes to all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school within the district. So it's kind of a trade-off. It does cost us a little bit more than what our normal drivers are. It's about $25,000 to $30,000 more of a cost, but it's a trade-off to actually have drivers to run our own routes. So
We need drivers.
So when we do get drivers, these are the things we'll pull back and we'll take them back.
Well, shouldn't we pay, if we're paying somebody else $25,000 more, shouldn't we increase the starting salaries again or something? Because we're paying somebody else more, right, than we hired somebody? Is that correct? So, to get these drivers.
We're paying more for us. Our estimate is more for a service for the outside company to do it than we could do it in-house if we had drivers.
But again, it's two.
But again, just two.
Yes.
Two drivers.
Two drivers.
Yep. Next one is Bright Star Care. This is medical staffing. This is for nurses services. $75 per hour this year. It was $70 last year for an RN. $60 per hour for an LPN. It was $55 last year. This is a renewal of nursing services when we need outside services. Joseph Warner, he's the doctor that reviews our IEPs for health-related services. He's renewing with us again for the 22-23 year, $175 per hour, same cost as the current year. Next one is Lakeside Youth Service. This is an addendum to the contract you passed at our last meeting in June with some changes in the special ed and the academy. We now have to increase these spots at this with Lakeside. These were students that would have been brought back to the district with those changes. Now we need to keep them at Lakeside. So we're going up from 8 slots to 12 slots for the special ed, and that new cost will be $464,304. The 5.6 counselors is the same as it was before. That's not a change. For the total now is $812,344.
So what was it before? What was it? Was it 460? 800 is the total cost down?
The increase was about $160,000.
100, that's what I
slots.
wanted.
Yeah, it's
Right.
about, the increase is about $160,000.
So because
from
we
what would
didn't
have
do that
approved.
program, we're spending 161. Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Cole.
Certainly.
J, Council of Southeast Pennsylvania, services to the student assistance team. This is a renewal. This is for next school year, $19,850. That's the same price that we paid this year or the last year for the SAP team services. Next three are CADES. The first is letter K is CADES one-to-one staff for student identified as 2023-05. It is for next school year, $217.07 per day, same as last year. The next one is CADES self-contained special ed program for student identified as 2023-06, $393.38 per day. $393.38 per day. Increase from last year. It was $374.64. And the third CADES is the self-contained special ed program for student identified as 2023-07, $335 per day. It was $308.91 last year. And CADES are students in approved private school. Next is contract for transportation of school pupils between the school district and the parent, identified as 2023-08. This is a renewal from last year. This is a student attending an outside of the district placement. Parents have agreed to transport and receive the IRS mileage rate, which again saves us a driver that we're able to use inside the district. O is a settlement agreement for a student identified as 2023-09. I believe this was presented to the board in executive session in June, so you have had all the details presented to you. P, Lehigh Valley University, class of 2024, junior prom. So we're talking about prom season in next May. $2,400 for the facility fee. That's up from $2,150 last year. $3,000 deposit for services, and that's up from $2,500 last year. And that is all student paid for their proms.
So why did we have that at Lehigh? Why? I mean, these are
Junior prom.
junior prom are the newer drivers, right? So they're driving 45 minutes to get there. Isn't there something closer? Actually, I didn't bring this, a parent brought that up. to me.
There are not many facilities closer,
I know.
and as the students have considered the sites, this is a site that that is attractive to them. They pick it.
Right.
Well, a parent brought me that question months ago. I was like, that's a good question. If you want those kids driving that far. Yeah, but you say there's no alternative?
There are very few facilities, and
How
so
many
when the
people?
students look at them, that this is the one they choose.
How many people typically go, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, how many kids do they have to?
That wasn't my question, it was someone else's.
Junior and senior.
He was concerned, their parent was concerned about it, they just didn't want their kid driving that far.
Yeah,
So, I'm not against it,
Just kidding.
well,
Okay.
it's fine.
Q, this is a renewal, Levy School Bus Company. They do our third-party CDL testing, $165 per test. They do the renewal testing and so forth. So the driver's license expired, they have to be tested again and so forth. So that's what we use Levy for. R is Life Touch. This is for the elementary and middle school portraits. This is an extension from the previous agreement. Approved back in February 2019, and this is for next school year, and this is parent paid. S is Rubicon West LLC. This is the Atlas Virtual Professional Development Sessions and consultant hours. Cost is $2,635 for the 1 year.
so is that just basically learning how to use Atlas and, okay, like its
It's for staff
capabilities?
as well as the tech support behind it.
Like how they upload and just all just.
Because it's brand new for most staff.
Alright.
Next three are IU contracts. First one is agreement to provide College Board, the College Board Consortium for next school year. Cost is $18,128. It's actually reduced from last year, and this is for the help me, AP? Is it?
Oh, the PSAT.
P- yes.
Yes.
PSAT.
PSAT.
Yes.
Yes. And the next one is the Early Childhood Programs Memorandum of Agreement for next year. This is for the 2 classrooms at Sellersville that the Early Childhood Program uses each year. So that's the agreement for the classrooms. And the next one is the Head Start grantee MOU, and that is for the actual Head Start program that runs in those classrooms.
Correct.
Correct.
We're only using one classroom this year.
Oh, one classroom? Okay. Thank you.
That's one of the three there? Intermediate?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Not enough students or enough staffing from the idea next year.
Hey, we have the ability to give them 2,
Correct.
right? But they only need 1. All right, W is Market Street Sports sponsorship agreement with Grandview Hospital. This is for $45,000 per year over a 3-year period. This is for the stadium signs that you see up in the stadium, the Grandview Health Stadium signs. The green gym is also sponsored by Grandview Health, the white gym, and the natatorium. You'll see the Grandview Health signs on all those 4 areas. And that's what this was 2 separate contracts. It's now been brought together into one.
Sure. Do you know, I mean, this is a question maybe more for Market Street, but I'm just thinking now it's going to be another several years. What do they talk to them about replacing them if
Yes.
they look worn and all that?
There's actually money set aside in the agreement for signs and so forth and maintenance of them. So if they do tear or break, or they get faded, or they will replace them. There is money, set aside.
Where does that money go? What, is it in a budget or you're making money there, right?
Yeah, so it just goes into our revenue budget, the miscellaneous revenue budget.
You have a special project?
But
$45,000, I don't know.
We're actually bringing revenue from other than taxpayers.
Sorry.
The next is Staples Office Superstore. This is actually a donation program to provide school supplies to kids at South Middle School. Mr. Renner sent this one over. He's working with Staples to to get South into that program, but it's actually a contract that has to be signed, so I told him that we needed to put it through the board and get the okay before he can start that program, but it's a nice thing for the kids to get supplies.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Trying to keep it- But is that something that Mr. Renner initiated, like saw something that was available and he applied? Would it be available to others?
So one of the parents from South was actually the person that saw it and actually gave Staples Mr. Renner's name, and they contacted him. Then the last one is New Hope Academy, educational services for the student identified as 2023-10, 40,900, and this actually ties back to the settlement agreement. This is then the placement cost contract for that settlement agreement. And that is the contract.
And next is student activity.
Okay, student activities, we have 2 this month. Dibler Elementary School Student Council renewal there, and the high school ski and board club renewing their student activity account.
And the presentation.
So we have ARPSers or ARPSers Learning Loss Update. This will be Dr. Rabarczyk.
All right, thank you so much for letting me present tonight.
Mrs. Miller?
Whoop, it disappeared. Maybe I,
Security, I tell you.
high tech.
There.
Thank you. So if you recall, in June, we did a overview of the year of the ESSER's learning loss piece, as well as the health and safety plan. The health and safety plan won't be reviewed again until December. That'll be the 6-month mark. It's generally just a review. There's really nothing more that you need to do. But as I mentioned, as we went through that presentation in June, there were some areas where money couldn't be spent because they kind of changed the rules as time went on. So we had to brainstorm new ideas, and we had a stakeholder meeting at the end of June with the superintendent's parent council. We invited some parents in, they gave us some ideas of, and that was our stakeholder meeting, of hearing where areas might be considered as we go through. So we have, come on in, there we go. So, and a couple of these things were on that presentation in June that are being repeated here, but just for your information of how we're going to move forward with spending the 20% learning loss money. The Fontes and Pinnell kits, those are the reading assessment kits that we use in the classroom at the elementary level. And so there's a new version of them, and we purchased half of them last year with the learning loss money. And what we're finding is that we can go ahead and purchase the rest of them to have a complete set in every classroom now, and they're all up to date at that point. So that'll be approximately $50,000 to finish off the rest of the classrooms across the district and providing a kit for every classroom. One of the pieces that we looked into was that you can actually look at learning loss for reducing class size. And our kindergarten right now at Seiler is the largest class size coming up this year. So we are more than likely going to have to hire a half-year kindergarten, or a half-day kindergarten teacher. So we can use this funding to support that, and it'll be approximately $41,789 for salary and benefits. We looked at, based on our data and our testing scores and just where the needs were for that learning loss component. Our math, we are making steady progress. Our ELA is still a little bit, we're working to get students back to where they were pre-COVID and everything else. So one of the ideas that was discussed was bringing in a teaching assistant for grades 3, 4, and 5 at each of the non-title schools. Because each of the title schools have a reading teaching assistant and a math teaching assistant in place already. So the 4 non-title schools are Seiler, Bedminster, Dibler, and what am I missing?
Grass.
Grass, thank you. Grass used to be a title school, but those are the 4 schools that do not have any additional supports right now in that area. And they're all conducting a process called Power Hour during their enrichment intervention time. So it's the perfect time for the teaching assistant to be able to push into the RELA block and assist students and then support them in that enrichment and intervention time. So for the cost of 4 full-time teaching assistants at each of this, for one at each school would be $198,671.
So that would be for a year?
That's for this year.
And how long would we keep that? Or it's just, we would review it next year and keep it going if we still have money left?
Correct, so we
It should run
posted,
down after a while.
and we will have money left after this year as well.
Okay.
We did post it as a 2-year position, so we are expecting to,
Yeah.
carry it through to the 23-24 school year as well.
So that's part of it.
Mhm.
And as we've looked at our PSSA data, the elementary, the intermediate grades 3, 4, and 5, the ELA numbers are numbers that we really are targeting from a data standpoint. And so consistent with obviously our 3rd grade reading initiative, this is the next step in terms of providing some extra support.
Good use of the money.
Yeah.
And then again, also identifying students who are maybe struggling students overall and reducing that class size. We identified that we can actually use the funding to pay for our teachers and our teaching assistants who are conducting the targeted full-day kindergarten classes, both at Sellersville Elementary and West Rock Hill this year.
So
So-
would there be more kids in it?
So we only allow for about 16 students in each of those classes.
Right.
So it allows for smaller class size and then the full day. So, and it's looking at our most struggling learners at this point. So that's how it identifies that we can use that funding to support that program.
Oh, so it's not an increase?
No.
It's just paying,
Correct.
paying for everything, so we're saying,
Yep.
that's fine.
How many teaching assistants does that get us?
One in each targeted full day kindergarten classroom.
Or the one above, sorry.
The one above,
Yeah.
one teaching assistant at each of the schools.
Okay.
Because we stagger the RELA blocks at each of the schools for grades 3, 4, and 5. So they'll be able to push into each of those classrooms as well as the intervention enrichment time. And so the targeted full day kindergarten, there's the 2 teachers this year and 2 teaching assistants, approximately $284,106. We are now servicing 4 of our schools. It's Grass and West Rock Hill are tied together, and Guth and Sellersville are now tied together, which makes it nice for the kindergarten classroom. Because last year we struggled a little bit getting some students because parents were concerned about the different bell schedules. So Grass is later than Sellersville. So some parents were reluctant to have siblings, one child at Sellersville, another one at Grass, and not have that same bell schedule for their children. So now the schools, each of the 2 schools are on the same bell schedule. So it was, I'll say, much easier this year, and plus we had some very anxious parents who were ready to have their children attend the full day program, the targeted full day program.
So that's paid for this year. Well, how does it work from the budget? Because next year, we may not be able to have the money for that, so.
Is this also 2 years?
This also could be 2 years, yes.
This is 2 years.
2 years, but then
So we-
after 2 years, you gotta put it back in.
Yeah.
Regular
Correct.
revenue.
We have 2 years, then we're gonna have to
Figure out.
figure out.
It's a different question.
And
We'll never be out of work.
no, and last year, if you recall, the teacher from Sellersville and the teaching assistant were in the general budget, and we're scheduled to be in the general budget for this year, but we're pulling it from this learning loss funding.
But that's not adding.
So our total allocated funds for for the overall ESSERS 3 grant is just over $5 million. As you can see, we have about $1,385,000 left. We had to spend at least 20%, which was just over $1 million. We have about $350,000 left, and new expenditures for this coming school year will be $574,000. So we will have met the learning loss threshold, but it's at least 20%. So you can exceed that, which is only a benefit to our students. And then our time frame again is that all funds must be spent by September 30th of 2024.
But do you have to spend it per year, or you can just?
No, if we were to spend all of it this year,
No, but, I mean, you don't lose it per year, it's just at that
Correct.
date, whatever's left.
Yep.
So
at least.
So we will be looking very closely at what's remaining as we get to January, February, so we can start planning for for the 23-24 school year in regards to, you know, what we want to capitalize on and, you know, what our needs are for students as we identify throughout the year.
So you probably said this, but what do we get this year in terms of, like, do we get the teaching assistants this year and the targeted kindergarten?
Correct. So my plan is, because we're only using 574,000 and we have the 1,385,000 remaining, that we will be able to generate 2 years
Oh,
of
I
those
see.
services.
Because all the things you mentioned are for this school.
They're for this
Okay.
school year, but I am anticipating
Yeah,
that
many of
we
them
will have
will be
enough
funded
funding
twice.
for the 2 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
How does that qualify when we're not really spending money on learning on 280 because this is already an ongoing program, right? But we would do that whether we got this money or not, right?
Right, but the question is, if you then allocate the money through this, what can you
You could
then
do-
use that money for someplace else?
Right.
Well, that's what I want to
And so
know.
as
What
long
are
as
you going to
we're-
use it for? If
So-
is it not learning loss or is it just?
Well,
you
it might be a
use the-
gas tank at
Yeah.
transportation.
Right.
Could be another
I
bus.
know.
Yeah, that-
That money runs out. If we could do that every year.
Big concrete box.
Yeah.
So are we also, one of the presentations a while ago had a lot of digital resources in it, so
Mhm.
did we reallocate some of that to this?
We did not, because in that presentation, that was a 3-year plan. So for
Okay.
the star freckle component, that was 3 years budgeted for 150,000. So that's already been deducted from the 5,063,000.
Sorry, I still have a problem with that. I mean, we're representing the public, we're telling them that we're gonna help their kids that struggle during the pandemic, and we use 280,000 to continue an existing program. That's not really addressing that, that would've happened anyway. So if we get all this free money, then shouldn't we be using it for something new or something different?
Some of these are expanded, like the teaching.
Oh, I get that,
assistants
I
are
have no problem
Right,
with that.
yes, the teaching, the
That's
teaching
good, I love
pieces
that,
are,
that's
is brand
exactly
new.
how it should be used.
And really, so, I mean, the thing is that, you know, we did Beyond the Bell last year. Because it's up to the district to determine what your needs are going to be and how you're going to use the expenditure of the funds. So we did Beyond the Bell, we found out halfway through the year that they said transportation can't be part of that. Then we find out that nurses can't be part of your summer programming.
Right. Oh, I
So like all
understand.
those things came back to us, so we kind of had some new issues. The problem is you can add the programs, but I'd rather focus in on some of the great things that are happening within the district and we can utilize that funding to make sure that we have approval for it. So what I'm saying is these funds are under the definition of what we can use to pay for. Because we are diving deeper with the targeted kindergarten, yes, you can start programs, it's just a matter of, as Mr. Daubert said, you have to find ways to continue that after the fact.
Yes, but I mean, we have a lot of mental health issues and kids struggling. They don't need,
So,
the programs are already existing. Why can't we add to something?
you are correct, so we have other funding available through the other ESSERS grants that we're using towards
Okay.
the social emotional
This
learning.
is just the,
Right, so we have, for example, the 7% set aside that the state, so what generally happened was all the ESSER 3 money, or ESSER 2 money got distributed to all the different school districts. And then the state just realized, oh my gosh, we have all this money left over still that we didn't distribute. So there's another 7% set aside that each school district received. So they set that for after-school programs, social emotional learning, and summer programming.
Okay.
And then, so part of that set aside money, $234,000 was earmarked for social emotional and mental health. So there's kind of different baskets all over the place. This is just one of the many that came through from the federal funding.
When does the baskets end, Doctor?
When do they end?
Yeah.
September 30th, 2024. They're pretty much cleaned out at that point. So, we received, just for example, received a homeless grant for homelessness. That was very small in allocation. That was only about $25,000 that we're using towards another contracting with another social worker outside because we're adding to that piece to help with just homelessness in our district. Because of the number of increase of homeless families that we've encountered, we needed additional support to help them get the resources they need to get back on their feet.
That's good.
So we are using the other funds here and there. It's just a matter of, this was the largest allocation that we received. And they put a lot of parameters on how you spend it, but also the timelines as well. And then this will be monitored and audited, and we'll go through that process as well. And we'll be explaining that more once we get to that piece.
And no strings attached with the money? I mean, I
Really, the only strings attached is that you have an active health and safety plan. And the health and safety plan is something that you reviewed it, and we keep it simple. There's nothing that needs to be added to it. They're not telling us what we have to put in this health and safety plan. They're just saying you have to have an active health and safety plan. So.
So I gotta revisit
We
it every
review
6
it and
months.
just-
Right, because that's how they want you to monitor that you are staying current in order to receive your funding.
So the total amount we have is 5 million for all these different areas?
Just for this one,
Just for this?
Just
just for this
How
grant.
much is the other stuff that?
I can get that to you. I don't have it top of my head. I mean, the other,
No,
ESSER,
that's fine.
you know, we
Yeah,
had
I'd like to know.
ESSER's
Just
1,
over a
ESSER's 2,
Right.
and then Sean, I don't
Just
know.
over $1 million.
Was it just
So
over a
this is the
million?
big,
This is,
Yeah, this
Yes.
is the next one.
not other.
Mhm.
this is the, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that's all I have.
That was last time.
I want to make sure. All right.
Onward to state funding discussion.
All right, we have two quick things to go over with you yet tonight. Then we'll get to our executive session. So this one is also on your agenda. It's a little small up there, but I wanted to put it up so that they can see it.
Wow.
Magic touch.
You like to do that.
So I bring my own laptop.
He
so I
comes
can
in when
expand
we're
it
not
and do
here
it.
and practicing.
Yeah, I just practice.
So he can, you know.
So you guys heard in early July about the historic funding that education received in the state budget. There was a lot of extra money flowing around Harrisburg, and education finally got a pretty good chunk of it. If you remember back in the February, the governor asked for $1.5 billion in basic education funding. Well, in the final budget, he received $525 million in basic education funding increase. So certainly certainly not the $1.5 billion that he asked for, but definitely a historic increase. We haven't seen a number like that in basic ed funding in my career. That's usually 200 million tops, or 100 million. Then separated, broken out over the 500 school districts. But anyway, just to let you show you what that does, the 525 million. Our last year's allocation for basic ed funding was 11.6 million. The governor's budget that he put out in February, his $1.5 billion budget, we would have got 14.4 million, almost 14.5 million for that. The actual number that we put in our budget, when we did our budget in June, we put in 11.9 million. So we did build a little bit of an increase in from 11.6 up to 11.9. And what actually came in out of the 525 million to Penridge is 12.4 million. So budget to budget increase, year over year increase is $781,000. And in our budget, that number compared to our budget, it's about $500,000 addition to what we actually budgeted. And we have about a nice, beautiful $500,000 diesel tank to replace. It just happened a couple of days after the state budget went into place. So go figure, right?
The Lord giveth and the Lord
Yep.
taketh.
Lord,
But the funding can be used as you like on this page.
yeah, it's our
They
basic.
don't put any time.
Correct. This is our basic education funding line, no strings attached. It's used for, it's used to balance our general fund budget. There's another $225 million in basic ed level up funding. It's for the bottom 100 school districts in the state. So the 100 school districts in the state that have the lowest per pupil expenditures. State's trying to bring the per pupil expenditures up in those school districts. So that $225 million, it gets separated between those. districts. Special education funding line, $100 million increase. Again, that's a historic number. We're used to seeing like $20 million, maybe $30-40 million on the added to the special ed line. So you can see there that we ended up with about $92,000 more than what we budgeted. Ready to Learn block grant, exactly the same, did not change. Here are two new ones. Targeted mental health grants and targeted physical school safety grants. Each line item got $100 million, and it's broken up to the school districts based on a flat amount, and then everyone gets a flat amount and then an additional multiplier based on your enrollment. So ours works out to about $202,000 for each grant. There is a grant application that opened up on the PCED grants, Pennsylvania Crime Commission. They're handling these funds. So they opened the grant window up August 1st to August 31st. So we have to develop a plan for these dollars, submit our budget, submit our plan. There is a very strict list of things that we can use this money for, both on the mental health side and on the physical security side. So we're going through, like on the physical security side, we're going through what we're allowed to use it for, comparing that to our state police buildings reports, and we're picking out things that the state police have suggested that fit, and then that's how we'll build our budget for these funds. That's something that Kelly is working on, developing an idea of how we're going to use those funds, that we're the best way possible we can use those funds. So we're working on that. Jen Summers is working on the mental health grant part, and it looks like we're going to look at a Dr. Bolton, what do we look at? We're looking at
Social worker?
Social worker.
Student attendance and performance.
Another social worker.
That's from that.
And these dollars are actually 2 years. We have 2 years to spend these dollars. They gave us a month to figure out how to spend it, and we have 2 years till
And the month of August.
the end of the 2024 fiscal year to spend them.
So the grant amounts can't be more than that.
Correct.
We have till August 31st to submit our request, our plan, but then we have 2 years after that to spend them. So basically, they gave us a month to figure it out. It's really, you hate to complain about free money, but give us 30 days to figure something out, and then it's these are the 30 busiest days of the summer because we're trying to get ready to open school. Kelly's trying to get these projects, see these projects through, and now he's got to figure out how to spend. Sometimes great things happen, but they come at the worst possible time. The month of August is really it's a tough time for school administrators because their sole focus is on opening school.
Sure.
But we're working through it, and it'll be a process. But
So there's no guarantee that you can get that.
we'll get the money. Absolutely,
Oh, you
the
will?
money's set aside for us. All we have to do is submit the grant, submit for the grant.
But that's in 30 days, right?
Yeah, it's in 30 days. Submit
So
for it and follow the guidelines and put the money in the buckets that they say we can use it for. And certainly the social worker is a bucket we're allowed to use it for, so
Okay.
we're focusing on that. Kelly's focusing on things like lighting, outside lighting for security, entry, door locks, entry locks,
Sounds good.
things like that.
That's good, yeah.
Number of different things that he's looking at, so. Okay.
And it's use it or lose it, like if we didn't spend it in the 2 years, we don't.
Yeah, we'll lose it if we don't spend it. But we'll
Or
spend
you'll
it.
lose it if you don't submit the
And we'll
request.
lose it.
You don't-
Grant's gotta be on
Grant's gotta
time.
cover
So
it, yeah.
it's still a risk.
Yeah.
Well, that's the benefit of being organized. You have things that you can look at and find the
Yeah.
money for use for it.
And then the last two line items are pupil transportation and PSERS, which are both formula-driven reimbursements to the school districts based on school code. So there's increases in those line items. But you see those line items increase every year because salaries go up, transportation costs go up, so those reimbursement line items go up, so. That's the summary of the state funding from the state budget, so. Okay?
Next up, update on the Energy 2020 property tax rebate program.
Can guarantee that.
I guess that's you, Sean.
Yeah. Diane's gonna pull that one up. That's the last one I have for you. And again, it's also in your board docs, if you wanna look at it then. What I'm trying to, great, thank you. So what I'm trying to show you here is just last year's state tax rebate program compared to the year before. So last year was our second year, and in our second year we spent $22,924 on this program. We had 276 rebate applications that came in and were approved and had all the documentation that our program requests that comes with it. And you can see then a breakout of those 276 applications, what amount of money they fell into, going across the top there. Interesting is that of the 276 people we had this year, 110 of them were brand new. They did not submit for the first year, but 110 new people submitted in the second year, and our total number only went up from 247 to 276.
You have to submit every year.
You have to submit every year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you have to submit to us your state PA 1000 document and proof that the state approved that, meaning that you got a rebate from them. And when you submit that to us, then we're giving you the benefit of the doubt, saying that if the state approved you and gave you a rebate, and you show us that you got the rebate, and you give us the documentation, then we'll give you our rebate, which is 25% of what the state's rebate is. So.
And that's those totals that they're.
Yeah, so that's the total. So first year we were $20,637. Second year $22,974. So we went up a little bit. 247 applicants that were approved the first year. That's up to 276 in the second year.
So you get, if you fill out all those forms, you get, most of the people got $60 back?
$62.50. Yep. Yeah.
Because it's based off what you get from the state.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
we're-
that bottom right-hand side says grand total for 2021. That's really 2019, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Copy paste.
And that's all I have for tonight.
That's it. All right. Well, the next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for September 12th. Are we, just no public comment, everybody has anything to say? Then I think we are good for a wrap.
Mr. Thomas, would you let us know when live stream is off?
Very clear.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute